You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to the line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
Welcome to Opinion Nation.
And we stand today on the edge of a new frontier.
There is nothing wrong with America that cannot be cured by what is right with America.
What makes us Americans is our shared commitment to an ideal that all of us are created equal.
I, too, am America.
Now here's your host, Bryce Robbins.
Hello, everybody. I'm Bryce Robbins, host of Opinion Nation, and today is a gloomier day in sunny New Jersey. Clouds are out, so, nothing really nice to report from good old smelly good New Jersey. But I am joined by a guest who's back on the show one more time. Presidential candidate Lloyd Kelso's on. So, first and foremost, I want to congratulate you. I believe you're on 42 state ballots so far. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's correct, Bryce.
All right.
Just added California.
So there you go. So he's on 40. So is that 43 now?
Yeah, I think we're actually up to 43.
All right. Wow. So, he's almost on every state ballot. Do you think he'll be on all 50?
No, we will not be able to make all 50 state ballots. 3 states had sore loser laws, and we were unable to get on those ballots. That would be South Dakota, Texas, and North Carolina. It's kind of sad because North Carolina is my home state, but since we did declare for the Democratic primary here back last December, they decided that I was a sore loser and should not be eligible to be an independent on the ballot.
All right. So what I'm curious
we
about
did get the 89,000 signatures in North Carolina to get on the ballot, but then found out they were not going to let me on. So that was kind of a wasted amount of energy.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry about that. Some of these laws are a little ridiculous. But one of my questions is this. What gives you the drive to continue with this race if it seems that the cards are almost stacked against an independent run?
Well, you look at the contenders that we have right now. We've got Hillary Clinton, and everyone knows her background. There's so much corruption there. I mean, she's received so much money from foreign countries to the Clinton Foundation. We know that if she's elected, there's going to be this huge foreign aid payoff to all these countries that gave her millions and millions of dollars. We know her failure to help the people at Benghazi, the deaths of those men that should not have happened the way it did. We know a lot of things about Hillary Clinton, and we just know that she should not be our president. And then on the other side of the coin, we've got Donald Trump, who just happens to be in several class action lawsuits for fraud, for defrauding students who were trying to attend Trump University, were made all these promises and stuff that Trump couldn't deliver on, and wouldn't give them the money back. He has had a number of thousands of lawsuits against him in his career. He's bankrupted 4 businesses. He would be. I agree with Mayor Bloomberg. I think it would be tragic if he is elected our president.
So now let me ask you this, though. We see other third-party candidates, such as, we have Jill Stein and we have Gary Johnson, and they're making some headway news. They're getting big attention. If you're not able to get that type of media attention, do you think you can be a legitimate contender when compared to these other people?
Well, I think we will get some media attention. We really haven't cranked up the campaign in earnest yet. We still have, around 90 days to get the job done. I just am getting ready this week to announce my vice presidential running mate, and he is a black man who has been heavily involved with Black Lives Matter over the last couple of years, and much of his agenda and my agenda match almost identically. I was in a debate with him back in Indianapolis back in May, and really got to like him very much. He has military experience and is quite a leader. I think we will make a great team. Right now, our campaigns are in the process of. He was also a presidential candidate, and so our campaigns are in the process right now of linking together all of our dates that we had scheduled and trying to coordinate all of that. My campaign manager is today out in Oregon trying to put together the convention that we have to hold there to bring in 1,000 people to get me on the ballot in Oregon. That we already have the signatures. That we have 3,000 signatures. We only need 1,000 people at that convention. So we're trying to put that together because they're the only state that actually makes us have a convention for an independent. So we're going to crank it up. We're supposed to be on MSNBC sometime in the next 2 weeks, and so we're going to crank it up and see what we can do.
So another question then that comes to mind is, going up against these media giants, I'm talking about Hillary and Donald. I mean, for God's sakes, they gave Donald Trump $2 billion worth of free media by just talking about him the way they did. My question, though, would be, if you can't get to the media, level that the debates are going to bring, that, you know, if you can't get into the national polls, then how much further can you actually go with your presidential bid, I guess would be my question.
Well, I mean, you know, if you sit and think about gloom and doom, that's what'll happen. I try not to think of it in those terms. I try to think of it very positively, that people have responded positively to my campaign. We've gone from having 0 people following my campaign last April a year ago to now we've got over 62,000. We have garnered around 700,000 signatures to get on all of these ballots. We have a ground team in like 12 states right now that is very strong. We feel like that we can mount a campaign, and I think that we're going to, you know, it's kind of like Talladega here. It doesn't really matter till you get down to what the real polls say at the end, and that's like in the last 10 laps. So we're far from the last 10 laps yet. We're still holding steady. I can see the air. I can see an opening on the outside, and I am going to give it a shot. I'm an outsider. I'm going to come in and clean up Washington.
All right. So now on some I guess some issue standpoints. You know, I know you have a lot about your tax policy that we've talked about, you know, the first couple times you were on the show. Now, have you come out with any other policies, you know, in reference to really anything that we haven't talked about previously? Any new policy ideas?
Well, a lot of the Bernie Sanders supporters really like the idea of free college. My plan initially did not include anything related to free college. I noticed Hillary Clinton came out talking about free college, trying to get Bernie Sanders supporters. And I don't know how they're going to pay for the types of programs that they're talking about right now, because those programs would be very, very expensive. But I think my free college program is an excellent idea, because what we're talking about doing is, for something around $500 million, create an online college or university that would offer various types of degrees with really high-quality professors, and it would be offered to people who are unable to afford traditional colleges and universities, and allow everyone to get a college education.
So that is interesting, and I always hear a lot of people saying that college is moving in the direction of being online. I don't know how practical it is, be it that I would not want to learn online, but that's neither here nor there. But I guess it is, you know, worth a shot. But now,
well, I did it. I got my seminary degree. About 3/4 of it was online, and I thought it was excellent. So right, I know it can be done.
I mean, I guess it's personal preference.
Well, yeah.
Now, let me ask you about, you know, your experience. So let's say after this election, let's just state, and I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but let's say, you know, it doesn't turn out. Will you consider a run for another type of election, Congress, Senate? Because it seems that you're popular. It seems you're doing the right things. So do you think it would be worth taking a crack at the Senate, at Congress, at something of this nature, maybe in your home state of North Carolina?
Well, you know, the future's still up in the air. I don't know. I really enjoy practicing law. I enjoy being and helping lower, poor people and middle-class people. It's a real calling that God's given me to help the poor middle class, and I do that in a tremendous way in my law office, and I love doing that. And maybe, you know, I really felt a calling from God, because I felt like in this situation that we have two really terrible candidates. I felt it was going to come down to this kind of a race, and we needed to have give Americans at least a third choice of somebody. Jill Stein, she is so far to the left. She is just so socially liberal. I would say she's a socialist, and she is so far to the left of where everybody else is. And then, with Gary Johnson, he is just kind of out there somewhere with this Libertarian Party, which it's hard to explain libertarianism, but it's basically lawlessness. And what we do need is law and order back in America. And I'm going to bring policies back. I'm sort of in the style of John Kennedy. I don't know what I will do in the future exactly, I know I've given up, talking about sacrificing, I've given up just about everything for this run that I've been doing. So I'm going to have to really work hard and recoup. I've used up all of my retirement, all the monies that I had stored back, and trying to make this run. And so we've spent somewhere in the range of $200,000 to make this run. So I don't know that I have any money left in the storehouse to make another run right now, but maybe people will donate. Maybe.
Wow.
Excuse me, Bryce?
That's a lot of money to spend. Wow. That's
it's been about half of my net worth. If Donald Trump spent half of his net worth, he would have already spent $5 or $6 billion,
something like that.
So, but I'm the candidate that truly has sacrificed to try to make this run and to try to be the leader that everyone is looking for. And I think I have the capability to do that. I'm an advocate for the middle class and poor and working families. I will not raise taxes on the middle class as Hillary Clinton has threatened to do. I am going to.
Now,
what's that?
My question is, with your sacrifice, I mean, that's a lot of money of personal wealth to give up there.
Yes, sir.
Looking back, let's just say, it doesn't turn out well, because obviously if you did, then it was worth it. If it doesn't, is it worth? Do you think it was worth it to do that?
I have no regrets. I'm not a person that lives looking in the rearview mirror. I live always looking out the windshield. So I'm always looking for the next opportunity, the next thing that's to happen in my life. I don't try to look at regrets or look in the rearview mirror and try to drive that way. If I did, I would drive myself crazy because I've had so many things in my life to regret, I guess. But I'm 65 years old. I'm sort of, I guess, starting into the autumn of my life. I don't know how well my health will hold out over the years down the road to be a long-term senator, House member. I don't know that I just want to be one of 435 people that's up there trying to make a difference. I think I need to be in a position where I can really make a leadership difference, and that's why I ran for president.
So now, that's interesting. Now, I've heard this saying, and I think it's kind of funny. Most powerful person in the United States is not the president, it's the first lady. Is your first lady behind you 100%? Is she ready to take the reins, I guess, of being the most powerful person in the country?
Well, I disagree with that. I don't think that the most powerful person in the country is the first lady. If it was, I mean, Laura Bush, I guess, was powerful and no one really knew it. And certainly Michelle Obama, does she have power? Well, I don't think so. I just disagree with the statement and the proposition that you're putting forth there. So, my wife, I tried to keep her private and away from the campaign. She doesn't really want to be involved in politics, so I tried to just keep her somewhat at a distance from all of it. And she is very much behind my campaign and winning, but she is not going to be taking a primary major role in the process. We have 3 cats. My oldest cat, Goblin, has some health issues, and she needs some medications every day to keep her life sustained. And so my wife continues to stay at the home and look after the storehouse there. So,
well, that's very interesting there. Yeah, cats and whatnot. The Obamas have dogs, so I guess you'd bring cats to the White House. Now,
yep, all three cats would probably be at the White House. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? We have two boys that are terrific, Gordon and Conwell. They're both over 20-pound cats, beautiful cats.
Okay, wow. I never had a cat, but if I did, I'd probably like it. So let me ask you then: in your first 100 days of office, what would be something that you would really want to get done?
Well, in the first 100 days, the very first thing I would do is to go through and look at all of the executive orders that Barack Obama and any past president has put into effect, and I would get rid of all the ones that are unconstitutional, violating the separation of powers. Then I would sit down and I would actually meet with every one of the 435 members of the Congress, spend time with each one of them and get them to come across and work across the aisle with us to help bring about tax structure reform, trade reform, immigration reform, things that we need to have done in this country. I am a solution-oriented person, and my goal is to go to Washington and actually bring solutions to the problems that we have, and not to try to play political games. I'm willing to work across the aisle with Republicans and Democrats. I've got Republicans and Democrats that follow me and are behind me in this race, and I'm very much a bipartisan person. I know so much about mediation. I have great mediation skills. I've mediated many lawsuits and helped people to bring resolution to problems. There's always a middle ground, and we just need to find that in America and start believing and uniting ourselves again. We are the unity group. This presidential candidate and his vice president are bringing unity. It's going to be a white man and a black man. We're going to come together. We're going to bring whites and blacks and Latinos in America together. We're going to unite this country again, and we're going to get it moving again. And big thing for me is going to be tax reform and jobs, job creation, setting up work centers across the country to get people into careers that they really want to be in, testing people, seeing what they can do, moving people from welfare to work. We're going to do everything we can to bring about change. And in the education system, as I said, we've got to change the situation where we've got 80% of whites graduating from high school and 59% of blacks. Those rates are abominable. We need to bring those rates up to over 95% for both whites and blacks and Latinos. So we've got to really work hard, Bryce. That's what we've got to do. We're going to spend that first 100 days rolling up our sleeves, loosening up our ties, and really getting to work on solving the problems of America. We're not going to spend it on the golf course. I don't even play golf.
That interested me, going back to your vice presidential pick that you're still yet to announce, but you said that he was a common advocate for Black Lives Matter, which is
yes, he has been. He was part of the nonviolent organization of that group from the beginning, and he and I have very, very clear policies when it comes to trying to help the middle class and poor. I don't think we have to necessarily segregate everyone by race. I know our country still has a number of segregated schools. We're going to try to desegregate those schools. We're going to try to change how people look at race in America and bring unity back to the races. We're not going to. We're going to be supportive of our police, and we're going to at the same time work on sensitivity of our police departments to be sensitive to all racial issues that we can deal with, so that we don't. One of the biggest problems is in Chicago, where there's so many black on black shootings, and we need to bring sensitivity to that. I think it's terrible that we're having that type of situation going on, and the drug issues. And a big part of that is the inability to get work, Bryce. I mean, we've got to have jobs for these people and get them off the street and change the way we do drug enforcement in America.
Well, one thing that I've heard, however, is that while the black-on-black crime rate is about at they said, 87 to 90% is what I've read. The white-on-white crime rate is around 84, 85%. The notion of this is that it's because our communities are still segregated to an extent. Now, my question is going to be, or was going to be, but still is, do you support the notion of Black Lives Matter? Do you support the movement of the group? And do you support their name? Because this has been a big topic. Now, I've come out, I've said I've supported it. I think it makes sense to me. But I want to know your opinion on this.
Yeah, I do support the notion of Black Lives Matter, and I don't support the notion that means that they are somehow to be put on a pedestal. But I do think that they have not been treated well, and we've got to address that issue. A big part of my administration, I say in the first 100 days, we're going to be looking at ways we can go about trying to fix that. I posted very recently on the Facebook page a number of things that we'll be looking at to try to bring about change that will help every Black American to have opportunity that they've not had before, to help bring sensitivity to the police departments of America, so there will not be as many racial type shootings as we've had in the past. to address this tax structure that we got that just really and the marriage penalty that exists in welfare, where you can't have a father in the home for the kids because if they do, they lose their welfare benefits. So we've got to address a number of these issues to change the way people are having to interrelate socially with one another, and to bring about major change in America to help kids have parents. You know, Bryce, the young kids, 75% of black kids in America today are born to a single mother, and they don't have a dad. So we've got to change that. We've got to have it where, dads are important too, and it's very important too. These mothers are having to work 2 or 3 jobs, and makes it really tough.
All right, so I think that's all the time we have for today. But thank you so much for joining us, Lloyd. Good luck on your election. I'm sure you'll be back as always. I definitely want to hear what happens after the election. So either if you are the president, you give us a call still. And even if it doesn't work out, I still want to talk about it, your experience on it, because I think, it's incredibly unique what you got going. So
it's amazing. It's amazing. We're on more state ballots than Ross Perot, I think, in 1992, and I've done it with a whole lot less money than he had. So it's pretty amazing what God has been able to accomplish in this campaign.
You never know what's going to happen. So keep on trucking, and
thank you, man.
I really support it. It's really awesome. So thank you so much, Lloyd.
Thanks for having me on.
Don't worry about it. My pleasure. All right, so when we get back, we might be joined by another guest of the Libertarian Party. I haven't yet heard from them, but they should be coming up. But my guess with my luck with guests, not so well. So that's that. What I do have planned though for next week, and I've been working it out for a couple months now. Jill Stein of the Green Party will be coming on our show to be talking about her policies. Now, I have a lot of questions for her. Cutting the military's budget, cutting or expanding the college for all, whole bunch of questions to ask. So that'll be coming up next week. But for now, we will be going to a quick break to pay some bills. And when we get back, you will find out whether or not we will be having a guest on our show. So until then, I'm Bryce Robbins. This is Opinion Nation. Stay tuned. Do not click any buttons. Stay tuned. Don't leave. Be right back.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to the line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
All right, welcome back, everybody. My name is Bryce Robbins. This is Opinion Nation, as always, and now I'm joined by Patrick McKnight, the chair of the New Jersey Libertarian Party. So, first and foremost, how are you doing, Patrick?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on the show. It's a pleasure to have you. So, I want to ask, Gary Johnson is your candidate. I was just watching him a couple days ago on the CNN town hall. Are you happy that he is your candidate once again?
Yes, I'm very happy, and I was actually at that town hall in the audience. I think that, Gary, for libertarians, he's not the most radical person in our party, but the reality is a lot of people are not familiar with the things that we stand for, and I think that he's a good introduction for people because he illustrates very clearly that we are the adults in the room. We've been cast as like a bunch of fringe, crazy people for years, but with the other options on the ticket in 2016, I think it shows that we're actually the responsible adults, and I think that's becoming pretty evident to people.
All right, so now I think it's interesting how popular the Libertarian Party is getting. I know many people who are already, excited and revved up and ready to join. Do you think that the Libertarian Party is, after this election, going to become a mainstream party?
I certainly hope so, because to be honest with you, I don't really see any way to fix the problems in our country without dismantling the two-party system. I think a big variable is whether we get in the presidential debates, because it's basically, if we're kept out of the debates, it's going to be really tough to reach the critical mass of people that we need to become the third major party. Now, I think we will eventually either way, but if we can get in the presidential debates, that's going to accelerate the process very greatly.
So I guess another question that I have is, because last week I did a show about how big government, or a active government, has actually done a lot to get people out of poverty, done a lot to help, I guess, so to speak. So, and I was specifically talking about Social Security, how it lifted 21 million something people out of poverty, how all these things with bigger government does somewhat to help. What would you say about that? What would you say in response to the idea that government is actually a force to help people?
Well, it's interesting because I used to believe in a lot of those programs. I used to consider myself a Democrat before I became a Libertarian. And what really changed my mind was when I moved to Camden to teach high school, and I looked around at this once thriving, vibrant city that has been the recipient of billions and billions of dollars of government aid that had nothing but the best of intentions behind it. And I look at that city, and I looked at my children, my students, looked at their lives, their quality of life, and I don't see any improvement. I don't see any improvement in places like Trenton, where you go a block from the Capitol building, where all these laws are passed, and there's abandoned buildings and people living on the street. So I look at the overall number of people living in poverty, and since the War on Poverty was created in 1967, it hasn't gone down at all. I mean, we've spent billions and billions of dollars, and if you adjust for the cost of living here in New Jersey, where we have a lot of these programs, we have 3 million people. We have 30% of the population living below the poverty line. In terms of Social Security, Social Security is, first of all, when it was first passed, it was never meant to be as expansive as it is right now. That didn't happen until after World War II. And second of all, it's basically an intergenerational wealth transfer where you have today baby boomers, who are the wealthiest generation in history. They're going to be getting their Social Security money from their children, from the millennials, who are the first generation in 100 years to have a lower standard of living than their parents. And it's, basically it's a Ponzi scheme, because there is no trust fund. Just like in New Jersey, there's no pension trust fund, there's no transportation trust fund. As soon as the government gets their hands on your money, it's gone. I mean, it's gone before they get your hands on it. So I think there's no way for these programs to be sustainable, especially now when you see a decline in the labor participation rate. These programs were designed for a time in our history when the economy was growing at 4 to 5%. Now it's growing at 1%.
What is the remedy to poverty? Because I understand, obviously your point of view is that the bigger the government, my question is first and foremost, what is the remedy to poverty in your eyes?
Well, the remedy to poverty is job creation. I mean, the goal shouldn't be to have, 50 million people on food stamps. That's not success. That's failure. The fact that people need 50 million food stamps, that's failure. So the solution is for people to be able to stand on their own 2 feet, have a job, start their own business, look at themselves in the mirror with dignity and self-respect as a human being, be able to walk down the street with their head held high. I think that's the problems with the welfare state, I think, go far beyond economics, and this is something that isn't discussed enough. And I'm not preaching to people from an ivory tower, because I'm barely above the poverty line myself, and I worked for the past 10 years in landscaping, where I was on seasonal unemployment every winter, and I was basically paid not to work. And I didn't seek employment because I would have lost money by getting a job. And not only is that bad for society, we're paying people not to live up to their potential as human beings, but it's bad for those people themselves, because that's a terrible thing to do to someone, to discourage them from living up to their full potential.
What is, and I'm just curious, because I get a lot of answers differently. Gary Johnson's answer is different than Austin Peterson's answer. My question to you is, what should the United States do about the coal industry, and what should we do about climate change from a libertarian's perspective?
Well, first of all, I think the libertarian case for environmentalism is very strong, but it's very different than the version that you get from the politicians in D.C. now. And the case is that we believe in private property. So if someone's polluting your property, whether that be your land, your water, the air that you breathe, or your own body, that person has violated your rights, and you should be able to bring suit against that person. Of course, getting into the legal system in this country, I mean, that's a whole other can of worms, that we have a dysfunctional legal system that's discriminatory and counterproductive, and that's a whole other story. But, you look at where we get our energy from, and basically what we want an end to subsidies. For example, the oil industry gets giant subsidies, and
$4 billion.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's conservative, because depending on how you measure it, there's the subsidy of our foreign policy that, we just bomb every country that doesn't want to sell us oil and dollars into the Stone Age, or the subsidy, there's caps on their liability for a lot of their drilling activities. I mean, none of these things are part of the free market, but neither are the subsidies for clean energy. Because when you subsidize clean energy, and I'm personally a big fan of clean energy, but when they get government subsidies, again, that reduces their incentive to be efficient and productive. And in the long run, that's going to hurt their viability when they on an even footing. So, it's a tautology, and they, let the free market work. But unfortunately, we don't really have a free market system. And you look at something like ethanol, where we're paying, the farm lobby has created this ethanol subsidy, so we grow all this corn, and it's a giant waste of resources, because the government, to say that the government should be picking winners and losers in energy or anything else is to say that we think that politicians, ultimately the government is populated by politicians, say politicians know more about what's good for us than ourselves, and I don't think that's true.
So,
and I point to, for example, I'm one of my first cars is a hybrid car. If you give people the option, they will vote their conscience with their dollars. Same thing you see now. People are voluntarily labeling organic foods, non-GMO foods. It doesn't take the government. All it takes is people to be informed about their own choices and to take responsibility. So that's ultimately the answer.
No, I agree with that 100%. I don't always think Gary Johnson says it the way you just did. I think you said it pretty spot on, and I could get behind that answer, especially the part where you talk about how you should be able to sue people who pollute on your private property.
Right.
In theory, I think that makes perfect sense, because if PSE&G, or that's New Jersey, is polluting down the block there, and I'm breathing it in my yard, then yeah, I guess I should be able to get them to stop that. So I like that answer. Now, on to the ideas of trade. And I know the TPP isn't really, free trade. That's a little ridiculous to call it that. I think that's free trade with a mask on.
Right.
Or the other way around. It's a dirty mask with the mask of free trade on. But does the Libertarian Party support free trade?
Yes, we do support free trade, but as always, it comes down to how do you define the term. And the way it's been defined by the government and the politicians, as you correctly point out, is not free trade. The North American Free Trade Agreement is not free trade in the same way that the Patriot Act is the least patriotic act of all time. You look at the name of a government bill, and it's going to do the opposite of whatever they call it. But yes, we believe in free trade.
Now, this gets me to my next point, because that's interesting, because most people, and my last guest said it, that when people think of the Libertarian Party, they think of lawlessness, and they think of, isolationists. But you just said I'm for free trade. The Libertarian Party is largely for free trade. I know Gary Johnson is, at least. Would you then say that, what do you say to those comments, that we are isolationists, that we are lawlessness? I mean, that seems to be the primary theme when I ask people, what do you think of the Libertarian Party? That is a lot of their responses. So how do you counter those claims?
I think it's pretty ironic, because it's talk about lawlessness. That's what we have now in this country. I mean, there's different forms of lawlessness. You could have, how do you define anarchy or lawlessness? To me, it's when the big fish can eat the little fish and there's no repercussion. Well, that's what happens every day in America, whether it's the bailouts or the court system. So just because you have a big government doesn't mean you don't have lawlessness. I mean, the law in America is supposed to be the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. We haven't had that law in at least 15 years. You know, we forget about due process, forget about the First Amendment, all the other amendments. You know, those are long gone. So that's the law. That's supposed to be the supreme law in America. We've lost that. So we have lawlessness now. It's only the Libertarian Party that's trying to restore the rule of law. Everyone else is in a competition about who can destroy it faster. And in terms of interventionism, you know, we believe in the foreign policy of the founding fathers, of George Washington, of free trade with all, but entangling alliances with none. Free trade is the opposite of isolationism. I mean, having voluntary trade with people, you know, that's a really helpful, fruitful, productive relationship with foreign countries. Going around and bombing people, that's isolationism. I mean, that's the reason why our country's becoming so isolated. Everyone, all other countries know they can't trust us. They know that if we do anything they don't like, we'll probably bomb them or cause an insurrection in their country. I mean, that's real isolationism.
Now, I mean, that's really interesting, the way you phrase that, and I agree to an extent. But I kind of want to ask you more along the lines of the social issues now, just for a little bit. Because I think that the Libertarian Party has a very unique take on social issues, and it's very appealing to me, and I think to most people would find it the same. So I kind of want you to break down, you know, the Libertarian Party's stance on gay marriage, abortion, and I guess race relations, because I think those are a lot of social issues that people care about right now. From what I understand, the Libertarian Party is not the conservative party that a lot of people think it is. A lot of people think it's a place for disenfranchised Republicans to run to. You even said it yourself, you're a Democrat, or you were a Democrat, excuse me. So if you could just tell the audience a little bit about the social stance of a lot of libertarians, I think they'd find it very interesting.
Well, it's funny because there's so many misconceptions because until recently we didn't have access to mainstream media. So Democrats thought we were Republicans, and Republicans thought we were Democrats, and you know, no one understands that we're really neither. In terms of gay marriage, we would prefer the government to not be involved in marriage at all, but if they are going to be involved, they certainly shouldn't be discriminatory, and we've been saying that since 1971, and as recently as, the year 2000 or later, you have people like Hillary Clinton in the Democratic Party supporting the Defense of Marriage Act. So that, you know, they've jumped on the bandwagon pretty recently. So we've been standing on our principles for 40 years. War on drugs, same thing. You know, we've been saying the same thing for 40 years, and now the Democratic Party has jumped on our bandwagon because they realize that popular support is behind them. In terms of race relations, you know, one of my great inspirations in life is Martin Luther King, and you look at what was his main message. His main message was peaceful communication, was not initiating force against other people by judging people by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. And what does it mean to be a libertarian? A libertarian is someone who rejects the initiation of force. I mean, we're the only party. You have to sign a piece of paper, take an oath to say that you reject the idea of initiating violence for political goals just to be allowed into our party. So when I look at the best of the civil rights movement, I think it's in perfect alignment with everything that we stand for. So on social issues, we've definitely been ahead of our time for the past 40 years, but I think our time is coming now.
All right, and another question I want to ask is about tax policy now, and I'm really trying with this interview to get people to understand, you know, what the Libertarian Party is for those of the people who haven't yet been exposed to it. With the tax policy now, a lot of libertarians are in favor of a fair or flat tax. Is that correct?
Well, I would say some libertarians support this fair tax proposal. I think probably most of them actually don't.
All right, because to me, I always saw that as a harmful tax that actually makes it more unfair. Because if you think about it, you're lowering the taxes for the people at the top who already have it, you know, who have like 39%, you're lowering it to 15, you're raising it from 10 to 15. So that's interesting that most people don't. What would you say is the tax system that the Libertarian Party then largely supports?
Well, I think you're correct about the fair tax. I mean, for me, it's basically rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. The real problem with taxes is not just tax spending, because we could cut taxes to zero tomorrow, but then our national debt is going to go from $20 trillion to $40 trillion in a heartbeat. So the real problem is spending. The real problem is the size of government, and that we have the government overextended, doing all sorts of things that it was never intended to do. So we really are never going to make progress on taxes until we cut spending. And that's something people support in principle, but once you actually present them with the different things, services that so-called services that the government provides, nobody wants to cut them. So I think that the voters and the taxpayers are going to have a day of reckoning where they realize that the government can't continue to grow, because as long as the government grows, taxes will grow. As a libertarian, I think what I would most like to see is getting rid of the income tax. Because the income tax is something that is, I think, totally at odds with everything our country was founded on. And
wait, why would you get rid of the income tax? I mean, don't you think that almost levels the playing field? For those who make more, you're going to pay more. For those who make less, you'll pay less. I'm just a little curious here.
Well, think about it. If say a liberal or a Democrat or a Republican wants to discourage smoking, they put a big tax on cigarettes. If they want to discourage drinking, they put a big tax on alcohol. Well, what does putting a big tax on someone's labor do? It discourages people from working. I mean, you lose almost 30% of your paycheck to these services, especially for like a young person.
Now, does it really discourage them from working though? Because
first of all, well, in principle, people should have the right to the fruits of their labor, and if you don't own your own labor, then what do you own? And second of all, I'm paying into services right now that I'm never going to receive. I mean, Social Security is solvent. I'm never going to get a dime out of Social Security, and yet I'm paying a large amount of my income to that every single paycheck. So that seems to me to be unfair. I think, but again, we can't cut income tax until we cut spending. So it's interesting because most people don't really understand where the money from the income tax goes. Where it actually goes is to pay the interest on the federal debt. I mean, that's where most of the revenue collected in this country goes, because the national debt is so enormous that just paying the interest on it takes up almost the sum of all our revenues. I mean, our country is insolvent, and that's what no one wants to admit. I mean, we have $20 trillion in debt. Our debt to GDP is the highest it's been since 1945, since we were fighting a global war on two fronts. I mean, where is this money going? And there's I don't see any way for us to spend our way out of this problem. And
if you were to get rid of the income tax, you would inherently, lose the federal government billions and billions and billions of dollars. So my question is, what are the major programs that the Libertarian Party, if elected, would want to cut to offset the amount of losses that they're losing, right? From my understanding, we got to spend within our means. That's what my grandfather always told me, and I agree with that statement. So if you're going to get rid of all this income to the government with abolishing the income tax, what are you going to cut? And, essentially, what are you going to be cutting?
Well, the first thing I think we should cut is the military budget. I mean, we have troops in 140 countries. Why? We have 50,000 troops in Germany. Why? Why are we providing the national defense of one of the richest countries in Europe? We still have 50,000 troops in Japan and South Korea. Why are American taxpayers providing the national defense of these countries? Are countries like Saudi Arabia, one of the wealthiest countries in the Middle East, and also one of the countries with the worst human rights record. I mean, they behead as many people a year as ISIS does. But we have this special relationship with Saudi Arabia where we provide their national defense. I mean, that's outrageous. Why are we wasting this money? I mean, even if we spent it at home on programs that I maybe as a libertarian, aren't crazy about, I'd much rather see it spent that way on American citizens than being spent to kill people in third world nations. I mean, that's outrageous.
Don't you think that these military, I guess, bases, that's exactly what they are, in other countries such as Korea, Japan, don't you think that almost sets a presence, the power of the United States, and gives us the ability to do what we do? I mean, don't you think that it's important that we have our military spread out and strong around the globe? I mean, if you have a base in Korea, then that says something to North Korea, that says something to Putin, that sends a military message. Do you think that removing these bases could do harm to our presence of strength around the globe?
No, I don't, but I think you're correct that it does send a message, and the message it says is that we're an empire, so that our country has become everything that we were founded to oppose, which is the belligerent military empire. That's the message that it sends, and that's the message that everyone around the world hears loud and clear. And if you look at studies, say, of terrorism, of suicide bombers, 95% of suicide bombers come from countries that are occupied militarily usually by us. So clearly we're not winning the hearts and minds of people by drone striking them into submission. I mean, our foreign policy seems to be that the bombings will continue until morale improves. Well, I don't see that working. The presence around the world, I don't see how it makes us any safer. How did it prevent 9/11? I don't see any argument there. I think it's causing resentment. I think it's creating more enemies, and it's a giant waste of money. Again, I would challenge someone to tell me where is the money supposed to come from for us to pay for these things, because there's so much waste in military spending. A lot of it is pork barrel projects for a politician's own district. That's what it's really about here. It's all about money. And,
all right. And
you look.
Oh, sorry. You can continue that. Sorry.
I mean, there was a report that came out, I believe, in 2012 by the Joint Chiefs of Staff that said our biggest threat to national security is the national debt. So that's not me, some libertarian peacenik saying that. That's the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying it. So I would encourage people to look up that report and read it for themselves.
All right. And my last question for you, and then I'll let you go, is to the people who look at the Libertarian Party and say, oh, that's just a crazy party, to the people who look at the current two-party system, say, I got to pick either Hillary Clinton or the guy with the wig, what do you say to them? How do you present it? I guess, what is your elevator pitch for the Libertarian Party in your last minute here to the people who are been disenfranchised by both their parties? What do you say to them to get them to be part of your party?
Well, voting for the lesser of two evils is how we got in this mess in the first place, because you still end up with evil. And especially this year, you look at Donald Trump. Donald Trump was one of Hillary's biggest campaign supporters for a long time, and the Clintons and the Trumps are close personal friends. It just shows that this whole thing is a joke. It's rigged. The two-party system is political theater to distract people, to make them think they have the illusion of choice when really they don't. And if people are, still care about their country enough to stand for what's right, then they have to vote their conscience, whatever party that is. But democracy isn't a horse race. The idea isn't to vote for who you think is going to win. You don't get any special prize if you vote for the winner. You get a prize when you vote for the candidate you believe in, who shares your principles, and you send a message to your neighbors, to your country, to the whole world that you're going to stand up for what's right, and you'll let the chips fall where they may. And that's what we in the Libertarian Party have been doing for over 40 years, and I think that's why now people are realizing that we don't work for special interest groups. We don't get our platform from opinion polls. We have principles. And even if you don't agree with 100% of our principles, at least you know what we believe in and where we stand. And that's something you certainly can't say about the two major candidates this year.
All right. I just want to ask you one last question. I'm sorry. Sure. I know I said the last question was the last question, but this one's the last one. Ralph Nader destroyed Al Gore's chances of being president, and I think many people can see that if it wasn't for him, Al Gore would have clearly been the president of the United States. Right. This election is going to be someone who has, while a lot of people don't like her, has more experience and would keep us more along the lines of the same. And then you have Donald Trump, who to me is scary.
Right.
If the Libertarian Party could act as a Ralph Nader, so much for the both parties. I mean, I feel like it'd be draining from both parties. Probably more from the Republican Party, but would you encourage people, if you see that Gary Johnson and the Libertarian Party are just simply not going to be on the debate stage, not going to make it, would you rather them vote for Hillary Clinton than Donald Trump?
No, definitely not. I'm just as scared of her as I am of Donald Trump. I mean, you look at Hillary Clinton, she's the architect of the illegal war in Libya, which has been a complete disaster, strengthened our enemies in the Middle East, created the refugee crisis in Europe. I mean, and she is, I mean, you look at the corruption of the Clinton Global Initiative, just blatant, out in the open, taking what are essentially bribes from dictators in Africa. I mean, this woman is certainly no better than Donald Trump, to put it diplomatically. So, no, I would under no circumstances encourage anyone to vote for Hillary Clinton.
And would you encourage them to vote for Donald Trump then?
No, for the same reasons. I mean, look, he was funding her Senate campaign, so clearly, how can he oppose her and say she's unqualified when he was the one giving her thousands of dollars to run for office? It's absurd. You look at most states. Most states are not bellwether states. Most states, like here in New Jersey, it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that the Democrats are going to win here. We're not a swing state. If you don't live in a swing state, you have almost nothing to lose by voting Libertarian and voting for someone you actually believe in. But you look at the big picture. If the American people are going to intentionally vote for candidates that they don't believe in, that's a pretty sad statement. I don't see what future we have as a country, as a democratic republic, if we're going to vote for people that we don't believe in. That's not how the system is supposed to work. So,
I like what you have to say.
These candidates are totally unacceptable, and I don't know how anyone could look at themselves in the mirror after pulling a lever for them.
I like what you have to say. I think you put it really well, and I think you probably changed a lot of people's minds about the Libertarian Party, or you got them to at least think. So this is Patrick McKnight. He's the chair of the New Jersey Libertarian Party. And real quick, if you could just tell people maybe where they could find you if they want to reach out to the Libertarian Party of New Jersey.
You can find us at njlp.org. We're 100% member funded and 100% volunteer staff, so we would appreciate your support and your membership. You can find the National Party at lp.org.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. McKnight, and have a wonderful day.
Great. Thank you for having me.
All right. So that was Patrick McKnight. He's the chair of the New Jersey Libertarian Party who just joined us. And I really think, the Libertarian Party is a rising party. I think it's a home for the disenfranchised Republicans primarily, but also Democrats. I see Democrats who are going there. I do have my problems with it because, again, I think that government, to an extent, does have a role to play. But Mr. McKnight seemed that, it made sense that, how he was dividing up government. I think there's still a lot of questions to be asked, but that's for a whole nother episode at a whole nother time. So for now, we'll leave it at that. Next week, I'm coming at you with Jill Stein, the presidential candidate of the Green Party. So definitely tune in for that. Same time, same place, only on Opinion Nation. But until then, I'm Bryce Robbins, and I'll see you next week. Have a good week, everybody.